Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode 153 of the Audible Farm Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by Couchtown Coffee. Couchtown Coffee is roasted right here in Iowa, and one of my favorite things about it is when you make an order, they roast it for you and then ship it to you. I mean, they're making these small batch coffee orders for everybody and shipping them out to you. So that's one of my favorite things about it. It's some of the freshest coffee you'll ever have, and they're not just roasting piles of coffee and hoping they sell it eventually, letting it get stale or nothing. There's none of that here. It's all roasted, made to order, and it's amazing. It's some of my favorite coffee I've ever had, and I'm serious. I'm not just saying that because it's on the front end of this podcast. I drink it every morning, actually. There's a cup right over here, and I got more on the way. So thanks, Couchtown. If you guys want to try some Couchtown coffee out, go to couchtowncoffee.com. Find a coffee you like, make an order, and when you do, let them know Audible Farm sent you, and they'll give you 20% off. Why? Because Couchtown Coffee is that awesome. This week I'm sitting down with Syd Bowii. Syd Bowii is a pop singer, and she recently had an album come out. Actually came out in 2020, at the end of 2020. It's I don't know, I'd still call it a new album. It's less than a year old, and I went to school with her actually and took some classes with her, and then she put out some music while we were there, and I said, oh, I didn't know you were a musician. Send me some links, and I listened to some of it, and it was right when I had first started the podcast, and I was like, hey, you want to be on the podcast? And she's like, I don't know. And then I hit her up recently. I said, hey, you still making music? She says, yeah, I had an album come out recently. So I checked it out, and I was pretty wowed by it. It was pretty good stuff. All I have to say is the production value is insane. The music's good and has a really good flow to it. We talk about that in the upcoming podcast here, and a handful of other things, like where she gets her ideas from, and kind of even making some videos or some music for TikTok videos, which I don't know if you can tell, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't really know how any of that works, but she's doing it, and it's crazy. Like, I don't know, she's taking it to the next level. She's doing a bunch of stuff, and it's pretty cool kind of listening to how she got the album idea and the concept and how she got it all started. It's pretty sweet. So hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. It's episode 153 with Syd Bowii.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Today I'm sitting down with Syd Bowii. Syd, you and I actually met while we were both going back to school a while back. It's kind of weird how time's been traveling through like the quarantine era, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it, but
it's very strange. Still trying to get used to it, and probably will never get used to it because it sounds like it's going to be an ongoing, changing thing. So.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a political podcast. It's not what we're here to talk about. But it was kind of weird because it seemed like everything moved super fast and super slow at the same time. And then when you try to like recount what happened and when it happened, it's like, was this like a couple months ago, or was this like a year ago, or was it almost 2 years ago now, so
it's crazy. Yep.
It is pretty wild. But you've been busy during that time span. You've put out some music. When I was going back to school with you, you were like, hey, I got this single coming out, and I remember checking it out, and then you had made a music video for it, Can't Go Back. And that was where I was just like, oh, holy cow, this gal I go to school with like can do this stuff, and she can sing. And it's one of those weird things when you go to school or you go to like a public place where people don't really know you and you're kind of forced to interact with them and stuff. Like, let's say like a job, it's a whole new set of people, and then you kind of just like, I play music, and then they're like, what? And then some of them dig into it, and it's kind of like this weird thing when you run into somebody else that plays music and you're like, I wonder like what kind of music this person plays, because it could be a wide genre.
And it's always a gamble too, because I've ran into plenty of people that are like, oh, you do music? I do music too. And then they show me other things and I'm just like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's either like, just not your style is some of the most jarring stuff, where like I can imagine if somebody showed somebody some of the most guttural metal they could show them, it's like, this is what I make, and you're like, holy cow, like this is crazy, just something kind of like that would always be kind of jarring. But it was weird because it was just like, this gal, makes music and it almost sounds like something you would hear like on a pop radio station. It's just like, this is insane. And she's just sitting back there taking classes, and it's like, it's kind of crazy. So it is wild to like run into people that make music and that kind of thing. And I don't know if you've listened to any of mine, but that's neither here nor that's not the point, because we're here to talk about your music. But Can't Go Back was crazy. How did you get, like, that was your first song you ever put out?
Yeah.
Publicly at all?
I was very, very nerve-wracked about it, to say the least. It kind of goes back a little ways. When when I first turned 21, I was doing some bar hopping with some friends downtown, and we stopped at this one place on East Court called AJ's. It's a little karaoke bar. It's won several awards for being like the best karaoke bar and the best stage to perform on. And I was really nervous. My friends were like trying to loosen me up to get up there, and they're like, "We'll buy the drinks for the rest of the night if you go up there and sing a song." And so of course I'm like, "Well, shit, now I gotta go up there. Now I gotta go sing a song." So I, warmed up and went up there and sang my song, and people were just very awestruck by it. And I sat back down. I was shaking. I was very, very nervous. And this couple approached me, Brad Padre and Hannah Sung. And they're both amazing. He's my producer. Mm-hmm. He's the one that helped me do the Can't Go Back, helped, that music video start off, and then got the album going for me, which is a godsend. I could not thank him enough. And then Hannah helped me a lot with like my wardrobe changes, and she's like a huge artist, and she's worked on many projects. But they really helped me take off and get that confidence that I needed, because if they wouldn't have approached me and wouldn't have complimented on anything or, offered to help me with anything, I don't know if I would be at where I'm at now. So it was just kind of like a huge thank you to them for getting me going and, getting that passion to start within me, because I've always had a passion for it. I just never showed it, or I never really thought it was going to go anywhere, and look where I'm at now. I had an album out and music video. So it was just kind of awesome.
I'm sure that's a common thing. Most musicians or people with any sort of like talents on the side think they're like, well, I can kind of do this thing and I'd be all right at it, but I don't know where to go from here. So it's kind of hard to find that starting and stopping point. You kind of need that
guidance a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's pretty awesome. You seem to run into some people that are like really professional about what they do too. So like, I'm sure it's no different. The music scene is full of people. You'll get these weird messages and it's just like, hey, I'm a producer. I got a record company. Sign with me. And it's like, what am I doing? I'm like, I'm not doing that, And you get these weird like emails that are obviously like fake people, but you ran into some real people actually willing to help you out, which is pretty wild. All of that like at a karaoke place.
Yeah. And I was very timid at first, because I was just like, okay, these random people have approached me. They have a really good sense of style, so that says something. But then again, I don't know these people, and I don't feel like just showing up to their house like in the middle of I don't know where, kind of thing. So I was very like hesitant about it, and I brought a friend with me, so I wasn't alone. And I mean, we just clicked automatically. They were very awesome people to vibe with. I automatically felt comfortable around singing around them, because that was another thing I was worried about was, am I going to be able to open up and like actually show my sound around these people, because I don't really know them that well, but they make you feel right at home. And I mean, they made me feel like a star. So I mean, that was like the start of it right there. I was like, feeling this confidence within me that, kind of spin off of. But no, it was a really out of this world experience. I think they recently moved out into Urbandale, and Johnston, and they are living in the drummer of Slipknot's old house.
Oh, no kidding.
So I got to do some songs there, which was kind of different. I was like, okay, like this is...
Is it like Joey Jordison's old house then, maybe?
The drummer.
Oh my gosh, because I think they got a different drummer. I think Max Weinberg's son is their drummer now, if I'm not mistaken. Oh. That's either one, but Joey Jordison just recently passed, actually. So that's
Rip.
I mean, yeah, it's kind
of bringing the podcast down. Slamming the brakes.
Kidding. No, but tip of the cap to that. It's kind of crazy how that kind of came around almost full circle there. Yeah, I mean, that's really wild. Like I don't know what I would do if somebody like seriously came up to me. I mean, I'm also like not putting myself out there like that too much, but I don't know what I would do if somebody came up to me with like a serious proposition like that, where it was just like, oh, you'll help me do this? Like I do have a really helpful like community of people up where I live that, would be willing to help me out, but it's still it's just kind of wild, Have you always sang then, or was this like one of the first times you ever sang publicly, like at a karaoke place?
It was my first time at like a karaoke like place, but the very first time I sang in front of a large amount of people, I was in choir for 4 years in high school, but that was never really like I'm in the middle and like right ahead of the attention. It was more like I'm singing with other people, and that kind of fueled my passion for singing, but I never really came out of my shell and was just like, I'm going to do this by myself. I'm going to be in the spotlight. Like that was never like in my mind. I was the choir person,
Okay, yeah.
And then the first time I actually sang in front of like by myself in front of a large amount of people was on a cruise ship. We were actually on a cruise to the Bahamas, and my parents saw that there was one night there was a live band performing, and you could pick from this like little book of songs that they could play for you. And I saw Cyndi Lauper, Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, well, I don't know any of these people. Like, if I make an ass of myself, like, I'm never going to see these people again. Like, so I decided to put my song in, and I was just so nervous, shaking the whole time. And I'm just like, do I last minute just not do it? Like, what do I do? And my parents were like, kind of gave me that motivational boost to keep doing it. And I finally went up there. I'm surprised my legs even carried me up there. I was just so shaky. And the song started off, and I was really quiet at first. And then all of a sudden, like, I looked over at my parents. My parents were like, come on, like, you can do this, you know? So I'm just like, all right. And I just started belting it out. And I think that was the most fun I ever had, was just everybody going from like, oh, this girl, and oh my God, like, you know, like everybody's reaction was like, oh my God, like even the host was, you know, trying to help me at first, like sing along. And then all of a sudden I started taking off, and even he was kind of like, oh, okay. Like, and I think that's where that kind of got me going, where I was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind stepping out of the choir world and just kind of doing my own thing in my own style. And that really helped me, I guess, get the confidence. And then and then it just kind of took off from there. Going to the karaoke bar and once again trying to build up that confidence to get in front of people. And this time it was people that was in my own home area. So I was just like, you know, I'm going to run into these people somewhere again, or even at the same places. But it was really fun, and I really enjoyed it. And obviously I don't have any regrets, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have anything at this time. So
yeah, I mean, like, I do love the whole fact of going somewhere where nobody knows you, and it's just like, well, I can just kind of cut loose here and do whatever I want. Kind of like the cruise ship. Not to be like, hey, but full disclosure, I've been on a cruise before too, and it's kind of like, oh, sweet, I can go out here and not like be anyone I want to be, but kind of be anyone you want to be, you know, to an extent. It's almost like moving to a new place for a while, you know, and you get to be the new kid, so you get to kind of choose what you want to do. You know, so I mean, that's kind of fun that was like one of your first things you ever did. As far as like me playing music, the first band I ever joined was in Des Moines, which is like not, you know, it's the metro area there, kind of like where we're at, but it was, I'm from like 2 hours north. So I joined a band in a place where nobody knew who I was. There was only a few people that knew me down here, you know, and I mean, I knew some people from the scene or whatever, but it was just like, I'll play down here where nobody knows me and I can kind of ham it up or whatever, you know, and kind of cut my teeth. And I did that long before I ever started playing music up where I live, because as weird as it sounds, it was just like, well, these people, if they judge me, I have to see them at the grocery store, you know, and, you know, especially from being in a small town, you know, it's like, I'm not going through that. I'm not going to let somebody laugh at me and then just be like, that's the guy that sucks, you know, or whatever, you know, you played a wrong note once, he's horrible, you know, I'm not going through that. So it took me a while to finally actually like bust into it and do it, which, you know, once you finally break through, I feel like that's, and just do it, you finally realize like, oh, I can do this. Like beforehand, it's just like, do I fit in? Is it, am I right for this? Is this something I should be doing? But then when you finally actually do it, you're like, no, I belong here with these people, you know? Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was too. 'Cause like I said, like cruise ship, be whoever you want to be, do whatever you want to do. But then as soon as my hometown, I was like, I might run into these people again. They might be like, man, that was my favorite song. And then you sang it.
Oh no.
And then it's just like, oh, okay. Or like, and then there's other people that, you know, I sang a certain song that they liked, like, you know, something by Freddie Mercury. And they're like, wow, I never really heard like a woman take that, you know, or like spin it like that. And so like that kind of got me some traction too, where I was like, all right, what songs can I take that, you know, you don't really hear, you know, women cover it, or they don't really spunk it up or twist it to their kind of formality. So I was like, you know, so I started singing George Michael, I started singing David Bowie, I started, you know, doing all those huge names, and Elton John was another one that I sang the other day. And
all, you know, just all great names. Yeah. I feel like as you're saying these, I'm like, that would fit, that would fit, that would fit, you know? So like that's a really good idea, actually, to take like a guy's song and turn it into a girl's song, you know, quote unquote. I'm using guys and girls, but I mean, obviously anybody can sing any song, but it's kind of cool that you're like taking this and putting your own spin on it. I mean, it makes me think of like there's a cover band in Iowa called the Pork Tornadoes, and they do a lot of like female pop songs and turn them into guys songs. Oh, wow. And it works so well for them, and it's kind of wild. But that's kind of like what it reminds me of. But it's the opposite of that, and you're out there like doing that at karaoke events and things. Like that's so cool. And like the key thing is just like reading the room. Like a couple of my friends, when they get there, they have an app, so you can just put your song in right away. And they're like, "Did you put one in?" And I was like, well, like I kind of want to like gauge the room and see if like, you know, if it's like an older rock and roll crowd, or if it's like the new times, the trendy stuff, like Dance Monkey, or, you know, like how they're vibing and what they're singing. 'Cause I don't want to put like a random song in and have it just be like a total, you know, bomb. Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't want it to be like, oh, I'm singing, you know, Freddie Mercury on a country night. Like,
yeah.
So you just kind of have to like read the room and see what would appeal to them. And so far it's worked out pretty good, but you know, I don't like jumping the gun. And every now and then I do like to put in a random song that changes the crowd a little bit and surprises them, because I don't really do country. I have sang like a couple country songs, but it's not really like my go-to. Obviously it's more pop or, you know, old time rock. And so every now and then I like to, when it's like on country night and it's just like super twangy and, you know, I'm not vibing with it, I go up there and just sing like a rock song or, you know, something more to the times. And it kind of re-sparks the energy in the room, so it's not just constant, you know. Because you can't like get all, I mean, me speaking, I know there's a lot of country people out there, but you can't really get too into the energy with just a bunch of twang and country songs. Yeah, so I'm like, you gotta like, it's a club kind of feel. You gotta amp it up a little bit, so you change it. But no, I have fun there. I try to go out there every now and then just to promote myself now that it's harder with live gigs and everything. You don't really know what's playing or who's going to be out there wanting you to play, but I do out there with my cards. Cut that part.
Like
get all tongue-tied.
Business cards?
Yeah, I go out there with my cards and just kind of, if they show interest or they're like, oh my God, you're really good, I just kind of be like, oh yeah, I, you know, happen to have an album out and you should check it out. Or and they're like, oh, okay, you know, like they just don't see it coming. So I like kind of marketing it that way, just because there's just, like I said, not many places that are wanting to play gigs right now, and it's hard to get a good time to play a gig. So have
you performed any of your songs live then?
I've only performed one live, and it was surprisingly, before the pandemic. I did have a good friend, Alejandro, who goes by Olipop. He's actually my guitarist. He and I played out at Smoky Row, the coffee shop out there. And we played Seasons, which I have not released as of yet. So it was kind of like test the waters to see how people reacted to it, if they had any input on it or anything like that. So we just kind of did it for fun, and it did really well. We just never really got around to recording it until like just as of late. We literally finished the song, I would say, maybe a month ago. Right. So now I'm just tweaking it and getting ready to post it. So
cool. And that'll probably come out as a single then?
Yeah. So a lot of my other songs are probably going to be singles instead of albums. So
the album concept, I mean, that's something I could dive deep into. Like, it takes a lot of time to put out an album, and then once you finally get it out, you're like, all that work is done now, and I have to start over from scratch. And it took 8 to 10 months to a year to put this thing out, and I had no promotion in between, and then it's out, and what do I do while I'm, you know, how long can I promote this? But the single thing is like, you can put out a single every, you know, month or every couple months and be like...
And that's what I love about it, is because like you can just be like, yeah, that sounds done, and then just release it, you know? You don't have to worry about like a big build-up or a big promotion. But with the album, it definitely took me, I want to say like a year and a half just to like write it, compose it, put it all together, send it to Chris Denny, who is the other producer, which huge shout out to Chris Denny. He literally shaped that album. Brad Padre and I actually just made it, sent it out to him. He was in, I think, Korea at the time. Now I believe he's in Florida. Great guy, awesome guy. He took his own spins to it. He added things here and there and just literally made it what it is today. So
nice.
Huge shout out. But
yeah, that's you probably think this album is about you. That's your new album. Yeah, so like that's something, I don't even know if we like brought that up yet, but you did have an album came out in October 2020. So it's, you know, it's almost a year old now, which is wild, because when I went to school with you, I was just like, oh, she put out a single and a music video, that's so cool. And then I hit you up maybe a couple months ago, and I was just like, hey, you still doing music? And you're like, yeah, I had an album come out. And I was like, what?
You're like, wait, what?
I didn't know this. Like, and I don't know if it's just the algorithms on Facebook. I don't see what you post or what, but I was just like, all right, I got to check this out. So a few weeks ago, I listened to it through once, and then the last couple days I've listened to it a couple times. It's a great album. It's insanely well produced. That's like one thing that was on my mind while I was listening to this. I was like, this isn't just some like ho-hum garage rock nonsense here. This is full bore, high production value stuff, and that's one of the things I had to tip my cap to you about. And it, you know, you've got some great producers there working with you, and I think that's something that I don't want to say it's undersold in the music scene, but so many people, you know, think they can do everything in-house and are either scared to or can't afford or don't want to go out and let somebody else look at their stuff before they put it out.
Yeah,
it's tough. I'm always a big fan of just saying like, I'll pay you to make this sound good, but now your job is to make it sound good. You know, It's not like it didn't sound good before, but we need to polish off all the corners here and make it perfect. And the album's great. I mean, we could go into that for sure. I listened to it, and it's a pop album. It's a lot of songs about love or love lost or the difficulties of relationships and things like that. And I'm sure that, like, since you're writing all this stuff, this is stuff that kind of, like, you know, comes from the heart. You know, it's something that you've either contemplated at one point in time, or you take like one small issue you had with somebody and then like turn it into a whole song, and just about your feelings and stuff. Like, let's like go over some of that, because I do feel like once you get to the title track of the song, it almost has like a gear change and it turns.
Yeah, so it definitely starts out a little bit like rock and rolly, a little bit punk.
Yep.
And then it kind of ends with more of like a... I like to think of it as like a letting go. It's like at the end, there's more of like a jamming tune, very acoustic, very upbeat, because it all kind of sounds a little sad, I won't lie. Like, there's some moments in the songs where it's just like, oh, like, there was some heartbreak, there was some turmoil going on here, like, she's trying to mend, and at the end, it's just kind of like a letting go, like you think this song is about you, you know, like you thought the album was about you, because it probably is. Like you're the one that kind of inspired this to happen, whether it was a good or bad time. But essentially, it's kind of like, I know people keep relating it to like a Taylor Swift, but it's not like a country, but it's definitely about all the exes. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you probably think this is about you because it is, but no, it was very therapeutic, to say the least. I think making music for any artist it comes from the soul, and if it doesn't come from the soul, it's not going to relate to anybody. It's not going to connect with anybody, because nobody's going to feel that emotion behind it. So it does take a lot of emotion, and I think that's another reason why it took so long to make this album, was because I would hear the song and be like, that's not it yet, you know? Like, and my producer would get so mad at me because he was always wanting to put out stuff right away. He was always wanting to get something out there to start drawing in all the audience and attraction, but it was more like, it's not done yet. Like let me perfect it. Let me get that emotion to the point where it's like, it hurts me almost, you know, because it's like, wow, yeah, that's what I want to get across. So there was a lot of going back and forth on that, because like he just wanted it done, you know, and I'm just like, nope, like give me a couple more months, and he's like, come on, we got to get it done. I'm like, no. So there's a lot of back and forth from Chris Denny to Brad Padre to me to get everything just perfect. And even now I listen to it sometimes, I'm just like, you know, I could have done this, or I could have, you know, like, and that's always why it's so hard to listen. It's always so hard to listen to yourself, because it's like, oh, I really could have, you know, harmonized that better, or I really could have meshed that up better, or added this instrument, or, you know, and it's always going to be like that. But I'm happy with the final product.
I mean, did you feel that way when you put out Can't Go Back, though, where you were just like, I should have changed this, I should have changed that? Oh yeah. So you kind of knew it was coming. I mean, like, if you're putting out an album, it's like, well, here's 12 chances for me to feel that way instead of just one. You know, it's exactly, especially when it's all out there. It's out there and you're done. You know, it's a whole album. With like a single, you can kind of gauge the response and change a little bit if you need to. But the whole album was great. Like, it starts out, like you said, kind of rock and roll. It grabs everyone's attention. It kind of goes into this, I don't want to say like sad, but, you know, it is kind of sad. It's almost like you're pulling somebody back with the emotions. It has this weird like perseverance kind of feel to it as well, until you get to the title track, where, like I said, that kind of feels like the gear change. It's almost like, no, now I'm positive about everything that happened. I'm looking past it. I'm going past everything. And that was something, as I was listening to the album, I was thinking like, this is actually like, I don't know if you intentionally did that. I'm sure somebody did. I'm sure that's the reason behind it. But it kind of feels like it has this emotion. Yeah, like this emotion that's being resolved by the end of the thing. And it's pretty wild, because when I think about people and putting out a whole album, I'm sure that's something that's got to be a thought in your mind when you're putting a whole album out. You know, you got to feel like you're bringing people through something, you know, whether it be, I mean, it's not like a whole concept album either, though. It's not like you're taking like, this is the one story, start to finish, here it goes. Yeah. But it is, you know,
it's kind of a roller coaster in a way. Yeah. But it definitely has that ending where it's just like, you know, it's what made me. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be times in your life that are really hard, but it's just how you face it and how you overcome it, and kind of, I don't know, come up from it. Like the way that everybody likes to bring it up is kind of like a phoenix from the ashes. Like, you know, you're awesome, it kind of burns, falls, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, you're something better and something more stronger from those experiences in your life. And it's just literally how you overcome it and how you face it that makes you who you are.
Exactly.
And you could take it in a really dark way, or you can just say, nope, that happened. Like, I'm better from it, and this is how I'm going to move forward. And that's kind of how I wanted the album to go. It was kind of like, it starts off kind of like, screw this, screw that, you know, like that punk, you know, flair. And then all of a sudden it's just like finding yourself. And it's like, all right, you're going to have that anger, and then you're going to have the sad, you know, like nobody loves me kind of feeling. And then all of a sudden you have like, you know what? No, this is who I am. This is what I'm going to deal with. This is how I'm going to benefit from it and move on. And that was kind of like the album, kind of up and downs. But
I feel like everyone can relate to that, though. Like, I'm sure, I'm very certain everyone's had like a heartbreak that they went through the exact same emotions, you know, doing all that. And I get it that like listening to heartbreak music might not be everyone's thing, but it's also one of those things, you've felt this. So if you listen to the album start to finish, you're going to feel the emotions and be like, I was there. Yep. I've been to all these places, you know, because it's the way it is. Like, everything's great, and then all of a sudden you're just like mad at everything. It's almost like you're going through like a psychology 101 textbook and just being like, here we go, these are the emotions we follow, you know. And it's pretty spot on. And I think that's one of my favorite things about listening to it, was that once again, like, the production is insanely good on this. How much of the instrumentals and things do you do like in-house here?
So a lot of it, starting out with Brad Padre and myself, he was kind of my muse. He would start playing something either with, like, on the keyboard or his little drum kit, and I'd start humming something, and it would either be like, oh, that sounds good, you know, keep with that, or hey, let's try these notes, and I would start playing something different. And so we kind of bounced back and forth on each other a little bit until we got like a beat down that I liked, and then I started making the music for it and writing it down and composing it. And then once we perfected what we thought was good sounding, we sent it over to Chris Denny, and Chris Denny was our star. Like, he, you know, added his own riffs to it. You know, he would have, for instance, at the end of, you probably think this song is about you, we had him hire a violinist. And at the end, you can hear him just jamming out on the violin, and it just sounded like something I could never even imagine myself. So I'm so glad I had that extra brain to be like, oh, a violin would sound, you know, really good at this, because it was just all acoustic at first. It was just literally me and my guitarist Alejandro, who just jammed out one session, and we sent it over, and Brad Padre did his little tweaking with it, and then we sent it over to Chris Denny, and Chris Denny just like perfected it. Like, a lot of it I have to give hands down to Chris Denny, because he did take what we were kind of giving him, and it was just like different tracks too. It was like, all right, here's our guitar, here's my vocals, here's, you know, this drum, here's, you know, we just gave it to him in segments, and he just like stitched it together like a seamstress, like just beautifully.
That's crazy.
Like, it was just amazing. I have no words to express how much I owe that man. He's very good at what he does. So
this is kind of crazy. So I like to think of analogies to describe things. So this is kind of like you guys built everything on a car, the frame, the seats, the whole 9 yards, and we're like, somebody put a body on this, and he was just like, all right, and you took all the parts apart and you shipped it down to him, and he put it all back together and said, here's the body I put on it.
Yep.
That's wild. You know, that's crazy. And I love those kind of things where you can kind of team up with other people to do that, because, and it's not like it wouldn't have been good if you just like said, this is what we got, let's put it out. But it also adds that extra dynamic of, it's just like, this is something that I've had other people look at, and we've all decided that this is what we think is the best thing that I could put out, you know? And people think that, oh, nobody does that. It's like, everybody does it. Everybody that's like a professional musician has a producer that does that kind of stuff. It'd be better if there was a solo in here. This solo in here isn't right. Change it, you know? And they add these like little things where they ask them to do things. And I get some people that might listen to this that are like singer-songwriters, like the integrity of the music or whatever, but that's the way it's done, honestly. Like, comedians have done it. Everyone's done it. Anyone that's put out anything that's worthwhile, they've all done it. They've spun ideas off of other people. And I think that's great that somebody else, you know, can look at that and then put it all back together and be like, I added this extra thing in here. What do you think of it? You know, I'm sure that's not like, did you ever send anything down to him and he sent it back and you're like, let's change it to this?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That happened quite a bit. And I mean, that's when the frustration starts growing, because, you know, he'll add something and he'd be like, oh, this sounds so good. And I'll listen to it and be like, well, how about we, you know, change it to this? And he's like, well, I spent hours doing this. Like, I understand. Like, I'm sorry. But like, at the end of the day, it's like, it has to speak to me, otherwise it's not me. And I don't want people to twist something and make it sound their way when, you know, I'm trying to, you know, perceive myself. So no, we did a lot of bouncing off back and forth between Brad Padre, myself, and Chris Denny. But at the end of the day, I think we were all just very pleased with what came out. But No, it was just an ongoing project. So it was like we met up probably 2-3 times a week, did some recording, did editing, sent it to Chris Eddy. We had to wait for like a little while for it to come back because he's, busy with multiple other projects. And I believe he's in a band as well. So he was always meeting up with them. And he was just, to be honest, with like the little amount of time that he had to do all this, I'm just awestruck.
That's crazy.
I can't keep complimenting him because I'm just like, oh my God, I'm just like flattering him too much. But no, he definitely made it what it is. And I think if it was just Brad Padre and myself, it would be a little bit more grungy, I think it would be, because he actually does do music of his own with his little group. They are rapping pirates. Yeah, they were on America's Got Talent.
That's cool.
They didn't make it very far, but I give them the kudos to actually get that, confidence and motivation to go on stage in front of everybody and pursue your dream. But yeah, they do all that kind of stuff, and it was very grungy and very like rap, and that wasn't really my style. So I feel like if it was just Brad Padre and myself, it wouldn't have been, what it is now, where it's very pop and very hip, I guess. But so yeah, I love having critics, I guess is the best way to put it, because they weren't yes men. They weren't like, oh, that sounds good, we're going to keep it like that. It was, that sounds good, but how about we do this? Or how about we try this sound? Or how about we add this instrument? And it was, or how about we change, your vocals and you either harmonize with it, or how about you hit a higher note at this part? And it was just so much easier to work with them because it wasn't like, they're not just going to be like, oh yeah, that sounds good, move on kind of thing. It was like, no, let's take our time. Let's perfect this. Let's make sure it sounds good, even though Brad Padre was like, let's go with it. Yep. But no, without those guys, I think I would have released something that I wouldn't have been as proud of because it would just been like out there, here's my vocals and some random instruments and this is what we do. But no, they did a great job. So
yeah,
down for them.
Yeah, it's also really cool. Like like you said, they weren't just yes men. So they weren't like, oh, this is amazing, you're going to be a star, and then just put it out there. But they also weren't like, this is the way it's got to be, punching down on you or anything either. So it's kind of cool. Everybody worked well. Had this nice happy medium like right there that you could all work out with. Because have you ever tried to work with anybody in a music sense, or was this like, are these the only people you've ever had an opportunity to work with? Because yeah,
these were like the only ones that and to be honest, it was probably the best experience just to kind of get to know what's going on in that music world. Chris Eddy has a lot more ties than Brad Padre or I do, and he kind of gave me some good pointers and a lot of reality moments because it's like you can't get too excited or too worked up about, oh, like I'm releasing an album, like I'm gonna be a star. Like that's not how that works. Like everybody, has either made music at some point or played live at some point or, put some kind of music out there, and their initial reaction is like they're very proud of it. So they figure like, oh, I sound so good, everybody's gonna love me, everybody's gonna, start following me and download my music. And it's like, that's not how that works. Like, you definitely have a lot of marketing to put out there. You definitely have to put yourself out there, put a lot of time into it. It's not something that happens overnight. For some, it might. I'm not saying that's not a thing, but...
Go viral, do the YouTube Bieber thing, whatever,
Exactly. But they definitely helped me kind of ground me to that reality where it's just like, we can do all this work and put all this money and effort into it. But at the end of the day, it just relies on, like, you. Like, if you're going to keep with it, if you're going to... go far with it. Other than that, I might just flop, and that's what happens. It's reality. So you kind of just have to take it with a grain of salt, I guess.
Do you find it hard to have like a balance between making music and just being like, and this isn't like trying to hop anybody up, but like be a regular person? So like a good example of this would be like
regular person.
Yeah, I used air quotes for everybody watching. But like when I put out an album with Three Finger Betty, everyone was just like, it's so cool, you got an album out with Three Finger Betty. I was just like, yeah, it's neat, And so like I might have taken it too far, like in the humble route, because I was just like, nobody cares. It's just music. Everyone's put out an album, listen to it if you want to. But it's also like, I'm kind of happy I didn't go the other direction where I was just like, dude, I'm so cool. Yeah. I put out an album. Dude, don't even talk to me. Like, I'm going to get a tattoo of mom with a heart around it on my shoulder. I'm just going to flex to everybody, like just do something crazy like that. So do you ever find it was like weird to try to like find the middle ground, to just be like, instead of just being like, yeah, I got a song out there, it's cool. Or just like, trying to just not be too much of a shill on the other end of it though too?
There's moments where like, especially when people like found out like without me telling them, I think that was like it gives you like a little adrenaline rush, if I can get my tongue to work. It's not working this whole freaking show. But no, it was kind of like a, wow, like they noticed me. And so it kind of gives you like a little bit of an edge. But most of the time I would say like, I'm just your typical neighbor girl. Like I just promote my music here and there when I can. It never really gets to me too much. Sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, like I have an album out. That's pretty cool. Not many people can say that they, you know, worked on an album and produced it and put it out there. But then at the end of the day, it's just like, I'm just a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like everybody else has a passion for something. That's just my passion. And I like to think that I'm pretty humble about it because, you know, my friends get really pumped up about it. And I think they are more, how would you say it? They try to like perceive me, especially when I'm out and about with them. They're like, oh yeah, like my friend's a singer. She has an album out. And I'm just kind of like, hi, like my name's Syd. Like, you know, like
I would have never said that out loud if she hadn't said it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like I'm not trying to sound like arrogant or anything. Like I'm just, here's my card. Like,
yep.
But no, I don't really say there's like a balance. It's just kind of like, it's my passion. It's what I do. I wouldn't really call it like a career more than like a hobby. And
yeah.
So,
I mean, that's what I'm finding. A lot of people are like with music. They're just like, well, this is just like a hobby gone crazy, you know, like this is what I do, but it's not what I do. But when I have free time, this is what I do. And I have like goals and things that I try to complete when I'm doing this. But, you know, and that's not something you can say for like other hobbies. Not that like there isn't, but like, I mean, you could have like, I like, you know, quilting or whatever. And it's like, well, that's a hobby, but there's no like, I mean, there are like quilt fairs and things like that, but there's no like, I go on stage and show everyone my quilt and everybody cheers, you know, or nothing like that. So there's not like that aspect of it. But art always has this weird thing. I mean, even if it's just like visual artists, you know, people that make like paintings or sculptures or anything like that, musicians and all those kind of performing arts, whether or not they're actually directly performing. There's like these weird things that I feel like a lot of us have to go through where it's like, yeah, I make paintings or whatever, you know, but I don't know if I am a painter or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, you are. I mean, a buddy of mine like once said, like, how many bridges do you have to build before you're a bridge builder, you know? And it's like, well, that's, you know, it's a good point. You know, all you have to do is build the first one. So, I mean, I never felt like I had too much. I mean, when I was younger and I made music, when I was like in high school, I was just like, I'm the coolest, you know? And I rode that wave of like high school. I don't want to be mean, but like I was just a dick. I was just mean to everyone. And then I kind of like humbled myself with music, realizing when I went out to play like publicly, I was like, there's way better people out here than I am. And I had to like kind of tone it all back. And now I'm kind of like dipping my toe back in, and people are just like, he's got this album out with his punk band. I'm just like, you know, I play music, you know. So it is kind of weird when people find it on their own though. Like, I mean, I don't know how to describe it or what to like relate it to with other people, but it's almost like shocking where they're just like, hey, I heard your album, and you're just like, what'd you think? You know, you're just like,
yeah, you always have that reaction. It's like, and what'd you not like? Like exactly. It's never like, oh, what'd you like? It's like, all right, what did you hate? Like, what should I have changed? But no, I always get really anxious, especially like my mom. She's like a huge promoter. I think she markets me more better than I market myself, and always takes every opportunity. I mean, she always has the cards on her. And there was one time we went out to eat actually with my grandparents at Hickory Park out in Ames.
Nice.
And our waiter, I can't remember how it even got into conversation. Somehow she just kind of works that in somehow, like, oh yeah, my daughter's a singer-songwriter and she has a music video and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, all of a sudden I know that she's like handing out all these cards to people at the restaurant. And I'm like, what is happening? I thought we were just having dinner. Like, can we just
like turn around backwards, handing them over the booth. Like, you guys want to take one of these?
She's giving them out to like the workers there and everything. And I'm just like, oh my God. That's like, you know, she's very proud of it. And like, I mean, I'm proud of it too, but I still have that humble sense where I'm just like, you know, I'm just here for dinner. Like, you know, here's my card, you know, but It's not like, I mean, my mom will get up and actually read the room and kind of like, it makes eye contact with somebody and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, no, mom, don't go over there. Leave them alone. They're just having dinner. So, but
Y'all look like you got teenage children. They might listen to pop music. Check out my daughter's pop album. It's amazing.
She even works at like a retirement home. Bless her heart. You know, like you see where this is going. But I gave her some of my CDs and I'm like, hey, if you want to like either hand these out or you could try to sell them if you want to. She's like, oh no, we're going to sell them for like $10. And I'm like, who wants to buy a CD for $10, you know? But she's sold all of them.
That's crazy.
To like these retirement people, you know, at this old home. And I'm just like, who is listening to my music that would even like it, you know, like that kind of makes you laugh a little bit because it's just like they're probably thinking, you know, it's some kind of music that appealed to them, and they're like, they put it in, they're like, who's this Syd Bowii person?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Like,
Either that or they're out there belting it out in the shower,
Yeah,
just like
right.
singing it into their, you know, their brush or
Little
something.
fupa.
Oh, that'd be so awesome.
So, but yeah, she's a huge promoter. I think if anything, she'd probably be a manager of me one day because she just is always mentioning things like, hey, let's try to get you to perform here, or how about we try to market you here, or, you know, she has all these ideas that, you know, I don't really come up with most of the time, and I really rely on her sometimes to give me that little information or just that motivation to keep doing what I'm doing, because there's times where you do get kind of down on yourself and you're like, well, that didn't really take off like I thought it was, or, you know, I'm not where I thought I would be. And she kind of gives you that, like, no, like, keep going, keep pushing, like, otherwise you're never going to get to that point. And so, I mean, she's kind of my backbone on that, but
Oh, God bless
like,
moms. You
well,
know?
yeah, I was just going to say, like, that was so, like, cliche, but yeah, like,
Oh,
mom power.
yeah, no kidding. And I mean, like, that's another thing I'm finding in here is a lot of people that have like that support internally. My last guest was a musician, and he's just like a young guitarist guy, but his dad plays with him and helps him and stuff like that, and kind of pushes him to do things. And he actually joined a band with his dad. His dad like hopped back in the music scene, and
Oh, wow.
it's like that's wild to have some like one of your parents, you know, kind of push you and help you out like that. Was your mom always a singer, or can she sing, or?
She can sing, whether she likes to like admit it or not, because I do remember growing up, she always was very, like, I mean, vocal. I mean, we would be like sitting at the dining table. My brother and I would just be sitting there, and she'd be like singing in the kitchen, like just some random song or something that she maybe just made up. And she would always make like silly songs, especially when she was pissed at people when driving. Mm-hmm. She would start like angrily singing at people about like, you know, like turn your blinker on, or like, you know, like just little stuff like that. So it's like, it would always kind of like get me to like start singing, even if it was just for silly things like that, and then progress from there as well. But no, she's very good at singing. I just don't think she would ever like admit it or like try to showcase it, because she just kind of leaves that to me. But no, she's awesome.
I smell a duet coming on
Yeah,
here pretty
right.
soon.
Mom and
Give your
daughter
mom a
duet.
verse on the next single.
Well, she did write the lyrics for If Only.
Oh, no way. That
Yep.
is so cool.
So yeah, I kind of edited it and tweaked it a little bit, but she wrote it, and I remember reading the lyrics. I'm just like, this better not be about my dad. Like, it's gonna be a sad ass song. But no, she definitely helped me put that one together. And I remember she gives me the little piece of paper that had it sketched out on there, and she was like, do you want me to like hum how you think it should be or how it should go? And I'm like, no, like, let's just see if like it meets to what you're thinking, you know? Mm-hmm. So I went to Brad Padres. We kind of like recorded it, played with it for a little bit. Sent it over to Chris Denny. Chris Denny did his magic, sent it back, and I remember listening to it, and I even started getting teary-eyed, and I'm like, I never get teary-eyed to my own music. Like, I don't know why. I mean, some people might, but it's just one of those moments where it's just like, wow, like, this actually hits home. And it's like one of the sadder songs, I guess, on the album. It's a little bit slower paced. But I remember showing it to my mom for the first time, and she got so overwhelmed that she started crying, and I'm like, all right, we're just gonna have a little cry fest real quick, like pull ourselves together. But it was kind of like one of those like bonding moments where she's like, wow, like you actually want to put it on your album and you want to like have it out there. I'm just like, well, yeah, like, you know, I was hitting a rough spot with writing, so that kind of like helped get that stone rolling again, where it's just like, not only do I have people supporting me with this, even like during my harder times, but it was just like they get their word out there too. They get their voice. And so I'm just kind of help projecting it in a little bit of a ways. But no, I loved collaborating with her. She had a lot of fun with it.
That's so crazy. Like the co-write with the mom. That's so nuts. I don't know if I'm going to ever co-write anything with my mom. But yeah, I don't, it just makes me think so much fun stuff. Like it's not like my mom doesn't support me. I've told this story on a previous podcast, and I've told it to many people, even on stage before. But like, there's one song, like I play in a punk band. Not all of our songs are socially acceptable, because that's what punk is all about, you know, whatever, rock and roll. And we play one song that's, let's just say it's like a little bit vulgar, and my mom like just got up and left in the middle of a show, like the first show she went to. And I mean, she's super nice. So I was like, what'd you think? And she's just like, it wasn't for me. And it's like, all right, fair enough. You know, like that's fair enough. But it is kind of fun to like just compare that story to other people's stories, you know. And like, once again, it's not like my mom doesn't support me. It's not like she's just like, this sucks, you shouldn't do this. She's just like, like, it just wasn't for me, you know. And it is kind of fun that like you have something that you can share with your mom, you know, in that sense. Not to get all like, oh, it's so sweet, but like, my mom doesn't love me, because my mom does love me.
No.
My mom loves me, everybody. She's a nice lady.
She's a great lady.
She just doesn't like songs with profanity because she's such a nice lady, you know. So, but like I remember telling that story like on stage once, and someone was just like, "Is that real?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's real." Like, but I kind of don't blame her though too, because if like somebody was just like, "Hey, come check this out," and then they went to it and it was just like, "Whoa, that's insane." So, but yeah, like that's just punk rock, you know, especially for somebody that grew up in like the '60s and '70s and listened to a lot of those kind of music. You know, it's like that's a far cry from what my mom grew up with, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like this, you know, like pop music is kind of something that everybody can listen to, you know, whether or not you grew up now or in the 60s or in the 80s or whatever. It's always kind of been there in some sense in the same general formula. And it's kind of morphed over the years. Is there anybody that you think you style yourself after, or that you borrow bits from, or is this all just like completely organic stuff from you sitting in a room alone just punching stuff in a keyboard?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. I did start getting more of my inspiration from Billie Eilish.
Mm-hmm.
She's really been taken off, won several Grammys, like good for her.
Yep.
No, like I remember hearing Ocean Eyes, which was like her first huge music video, first single. She was only 13 years old, and I just remember being like, dang, like,
Yep.
how come I'm not making music like that? Like, I feel like a lot of the stuff that she was making, like, I should have been making, you know? And so I kind of had this, like, envy, you know, jealousy for her, because I'm like, man, she's, like, a young artist. She's hitting all the, like, the trending music times. I mean, it's really hard to come up with something that's fresh, that's new, that's your own creative style, and yet, you know, you're winning Grammys for it all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, I mean,
several in a row, like
undeniable at that point, you know.
And so it's like, well, she's doing something right. Like, I take pointers from her, but I think, you know, obviously as you look around the room, David Bowie has been a huge influence on me as well. So I mean, I've kind of taken some inspiration from him as well. So a little bit of David Bowie, a little bit of Billie Eilish, but for the most part, Syd Bowii. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like when I listen to it, and I'm not proficient in pop music, but I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't really like sound like you just copied anyone, though. You know, because like when you say David Bowie, it's like, well, if you put a David Bowie album and this next to each other, they're not the same thing even close, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's the same thing with Billie Eilish and you as well. But like the one thing I was thinking was like, well, it's a good thing you're not here with like half black and half green hair or something.
Right.
Like, I don't know, I kind of like her a little bit. I didn't really copy her style. You're just like flipping your hair around. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, I think that even though I take inspiration from some people, and I would say more inspiration from Billie Eilish with some of the pop kind of songs. I know that when I did first start singing at AJ's, a lot of people were like, have you heard of Billie Eilish? I'm like, have I heard of Billie Eilish? Like, is that a trick question? And for the longest time, AJ's did not even have Billie Eilish songs. I was the one that actually made them download 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I think Ocean Eyes was the first one, and then Bad Guy, and what was the other one? I Love You by Billie Eilish. That was another huge, I think, tearjerker was the right word to call it, because I remember singing that one, and I looked out and people, and they're like, you know, like getting all I was like, oh crap, like this is not the right vibe.
Yeah.
Like,
I came here to have a good time, woman. What are you doing?
Everybody's drinking alone, you know, like just crying, and I'm like, oh god, sorry. Mood changer. But no, I definitely take, you know, a good shining to those guys. And I know Billy's going through some new experimental music right now too, that I kind of was like, ooh, that's kind of a different take, because I think I admire her more to the fact that, like, when somebody starts putting her in a box, she's like, nope, and she, like, breaks through that box, and she's like, just kidding, I also do, you know, this style of music, or I can spin it to this kind. And I kind of liked that, because it's like, I don't really want to be put into a box either. I don't want to be like, oh, that's that pop girl, or like, you know, she just does this kind of style music. It's just like, oh, she can spin it to whatever she's feeling at the time, kind of thing. Yep. So I really admire that.
I was actually talking with somebody about that online. They hit I mean, I get a lot of people that just message me about music stuff constantly. Tons of inboxes. I'm sorry if people have, like, you know, tried to message me and I'm slow to get back to you. I got to check a bunch of inboxes for this stuff. But I was talking with somebody about that recently, about how, like, it seems like some musicians, once they get to a certain level of popular, if they change something, all of a sudden, like, their most hardcore fans are just like, don't like it anymore, you know, so they get stuck in that box, you know. And I think that's one of the important things about constantly pushing the boundaries or always changing things a little bit, where it's just like, yeah, well, I wrote a sad song, but guess what? I wrote a happy song too, or like I wrote this is a party girl song, and this is the me alone at home doing my stuff song, and this is the COVID song, and you got all the songs, so you can kind of just spin it any way you want to. And like we said, the album it seems to be a lot about like love and relationships, but like you have written other songs that aren't necessarily about that. Like, for example, you did write a song about COVID-19, about being essential.
Yep.
But that was something, when we talked a little bit about this, we kind of graced over those songs, and you were like, somebody asked me to write those for him for TikTok. And how did that come about? Because I'm not even on TikTok.
So, my producer and I were just messing around on TikTok, and we saw obviously during the pandemic, a lot of people turned to TikTok because it was starting to pick up at that time. Everybody was locked in their homes, trying to find creative things to do and express themselves, just to get out there and, engage with other people. And one of them was like, how about we just do, some TikTok songs about how you work at a coffee shop. And the coffee shop is still up and running and has, the lobby open. They're kind of not really following the guidelines, but we have like maybe those little plexiglass shields, but, nobody was really wearing masks because, they had to drink their coffee or like, so like we were the only ones wearing masks and taking the precautions, but I felt like everybody else was trying to be normal still. Yep. And so it was frustrating because it's just like, why am I considered essential when so many places are closing down, like because of the spike, especially in the Des Moines area?
Yep.
And it was like kind of frustrating. And I remember going over and just venting on my producer, like, all right, screw this, screw that. Like, I'm tired of being called essential, making people coffee that are just Karens, that are like chastising you for stupid things when they're not even following their guidelines. And he's like, how about we make a TikTok about, we'll do like a 3-segment, 4-segment, however, TikTok of you just singing about how you work at a coffee shop and, you're essential and you have to be here and you have to do this because it's so important. People have to have their coffee in the middle of a pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of like spun it and made it kind of silly and goofy, and that took off really well. And that's kind of how I started putting my music out there, because I was like, because, TikTok can either be a hit or a miss when it comes to music, because everybody makes music, right? Everybody has a great voice. Everybody has a great style. So how do I get mine out there? And so at first it was just jokingly, like, I make music and it's going to be about how I'm essential. And then all of a sudden we get another request saying like, hey, I really like your style of music. Can you make me like a little TikTok segment? So I was like, sure, what are you thinking? And they kind of give you like the basis of what they're looking for. And that's how Ringleader came out, which is kind of like this clown rock and roll like style carnival music kind of thing. And it was out of my element, but I loved doing it. It was kind of like to prove to people that, I'm not just a pop person. I can do some weird rock and roll clown thing.
Yeah.
And, so it was fun just to like experiment with TikTok and, collab with other people and get their ideas. And that kind of got the stone rolling as well. It was just like, well, what else do I do? I'm in the middle of a pandemic. There's not really many ways to get my music out there. So how can I promote myself? How can I put myself out there in a really bizarre way? And that was probably the best one to do, is just, hey guys, like, I'm a TikToker. I want to make music for you guys. What should I do? And just leave it open-ended. And the comments and stuff that came back was just like, oh wow, like we're actually gaining people's attention from it.
Yeah.
So it went really well.
I have heard a lot of people say a lot of good things about TikTok, especially when you open-end things, or you just put stuff out there kind of jokingly, where you're just like, here's like a small clip of something that's nonsensical or whatever. As far as the song that you put out, I'm Essential, like, I think you did a good job balancing, like, showing what you were frustrated with, but doing it all in a comedic sense. Because, I mean, like, once again, this isn't about like what's right or what's wrong, but they had like all these guidelines set up, but there was like all these ways you could break them. And like one of the weirdest things was like, how am I supposed to go into a building and then I just take my mask off and I can like eat and like drink stuff, but then somebody's just like, hey, you should put your mask on. I was like, nah, I'm eating, dude. And you're just like, it's just, the whole thing was just weird to me.
Yeah.
And so like you did a good job of kind of calling all that out too, where it's just kind of like, this is weird. I'm here to just pretty much like make you drinks and
risk my life doing it.
Yeah.
Like what?
it was, like I said, you weren't just like cramming it down anyone's throat. And I think that was one of the best parts about it. It was like artistically done in a sense where somebody could actually like be like, oh, you're obviously joking about this. You're serious, but you're doing it in a joking fashion that people can just be like, oh yeah, that's kind of nuts, so kudos for that, without like, because like I said, I played in like a metal band and a punk band, and a lot of that is pretty much just straightforward telling somebody what you think, but there's not a whole lot of like dancing around it. But you did like a nice job of like, artistically saying something without actually just coming out and and being mean about it. So that was like something I was pretty impressed with about I'm Essential. I was like, this is actually pretty fun. Did you have anybody do any like dances to it or anything like that?
I actually did have, I don't know how many videos I have now, but like on the first week I had like 5 or 6 people like duet it. Mm-hmm. Either them like lipping syncing the words at their work, you know, kind of
Probably
like,
at a coffee shop.
Yeah, something similar. It was definitely food business related because I feel like a lot of those people could relate to it and be like,
yeah,
you're like, you know, everybody else is closing, like, you know, a lot of lobbies are closed and everything, but why are we open kind of thing? Because it's like, there's a certain extent to like, yeah, you need to feed people. Yeah, people need to have that normality in their life to like get coffee every morning. But at the end of the day, they don't realize like, you're putting yourself out there to be exposed to this just to like serve them something that they could have done at home. Yeah. You know, like, or went to the grocery store, grabbed what they needed and then went home and did it themselves. But now it's like, I want to come in for coffee. I want to like put myself in that position. And you would deal with people day in, day out of, you know, they obviously had an issue with us wearing masks. I remember having one gal, we'll just call her Karen, that would literally be like, no, you need to take your mask off when you're talking to me. I can't understand. You know, it's like,
oh my gosh.
And I'm like, what?
Why is everybody being so difficult? Like, that's the one thing I'm always just blown away by this whole thing. Why is everybody just being so difficult?
Like, this is for your safety, not mine. Yeah. Like, this, like, I'm doing this for you. Like, I'm not, you know, super stoked wearing a mask and getting this great acne on my face, you know, like, dealing with all these Karens. But it's just like, at the end of the day, they just see it as like a hassle. They see it as like another barrier in the way. And it's just like, no, like we're doing this to go back to normal and we can't go back to normal until you like shut up and follow the guidelines.
I'm trying to help you. Screw this. I'm writing a song about it. You know, like, somebody dance to this stuff, please.
So I feel like people did relate to that in a way. They were just like, you know, yeah, it's a joking way, but deep down we all knew the message behind it. It was kind of like, this is dumb, but we're doing it to help everybody else. So yeah.
I think that's one of the probably the greatest things about like writing all your music, because even if somebody didn't like, you know, I didn't work in a place like that. I did work in like let's just say like a business firm that had customers come in, so it was a little weird for us after a while. But then I traveled to work and they were just like, you travel, you can't come in. And I was like, all right. But like I never worked in anything like that, but I still like I get the gist of everything you're saying and I feel it because I had to go into some of those places like that. And I'm like, I feel like a dick. I'm just going into Dairy Queen to get a burger or something, you know? And it's like, you know, like I shouldn't even be here, you know? Like, why are they here? I mean, I could just sit at my house and make a sandwich and call it good, you know, like everyone else should. But the whole thing was just weird. It was a weird adjustment period for people. Mm-hmm. And I think you did like the right thing, kind of like artistically calling out what you felt about it without, like I said, like without just like ramming it down anyone's throat. It's all just a nice, fun joke. And like, as far as the album too, like once again, everyone can relate to heartbreak. And if you can't, man, you've probably broken a lot of hearts, you know? Like, I don't know. Like, you're just the one out there breaking all the hearts. You're like, I don't get about this at all. Sorry,
this doesn't
Syd.
relate to me. I don't know.
I don't know what she's talking about. Life's been great for me the whole time.
And the song's probably about you then.
It's probably about you. That's hilarious. Oh, man.
That's funny.
I feel like we've covered most of the stuff on here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I took very small amount of notes. Like I said, you and I kind of knew each other. We took some classes together back in the day, so this wasn't like a foreign meeting. So we kind of, knew what each other was about a little bit. But this is fun because this is like the first time you and I have ever really like sat down and talked to each other about anything other than like business law or something.
Yeah.
Like it's just
accounting 101.
Yeah. So yeah, this is kind of nice. It's cool that you're out there still doing it. Like I said, when you said you put out an album, I was just like, nuh-uh. Yeah. And so I had to go listen to it, and I was like, all right, we gotta get you back on the podcast. Because I remember when you put the single out, I was like, you maybe want to be on a podcast. You're just kind of like, I don't know, like maybe.
I was like, sure,
yeah.
Like very unsure about it at the time, because I mean, it was still one of those moments that nobody's really approached me on it. Nobody really like, and I feel like whenever I did tell somebody I did music or showed them I did music, they're like, that's you? Like, they always had like that like, second guessing, and I'm just like, yeah, because I was always very quiet, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
honestly, you kind of were
in the classroom. I was like the one that was just like, oh, you're calling on me? Oh shit, what do I say?
I do remember some of the other girls that were in our class, like when you told us that you had a music video out, and we're like, we're all going to watch it, and then like the next time we had class, they were just like, that was amazing, like, and you're just kind of like, thank you, like, appreciate it. So it's kind of fun. Oh man. So yeah, I appreciate you sitting down talking with me about your album coming out. The TikTok songs, that was something else that was kind of fun. I was like, I listened to them and I'm like, these are different than everything else you've put out. And then you were like, these were on TikTok. And I'm like, all right, we got to talk about this, But it's kind of cool. You went from like doing a single to doing some TikTok stuff. You got a full album out. You got a new single that's going to come out soon. Yeah. People can listen to it anywhere online, as far as I know. I found it on Spotify, the album.
Spotify, it should be on iTunes, literally like any kind of streaming.
Nice.
So
Nice.
Multi-platform.
Syd Bowii, the links will be down below. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about on the podcast while we're still here?
Just stay tuned. I mean, we're going to do some singles here. Me and Ollie Pop, my guitarist. So still working on that. We meet up every Monday and we kind of have jam sessions and tweak things here and there. We did have one song done, so we're hopefully going to be posting that here soon. Other than that, just keep an eye out for some singles. And
awesome. I'll put some links in the description. Thank you very much for sitting down and talking with me,
Thank
Syd
you
Bowii.
so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. It was a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah. It was good to sit down and talk with Syd again. I hadn't seen her in a while, and it was fun to, like I said, about a month or so ago, I was like, hey, you still making music? And she says, yeah, I got an album. And it was pretty wild to be like, what? And then, get to sit down and listen to it. So she has been busy since the last time I've seen her, which is pretty cool. It's one of those things when it comes down to making music, it kind of really doesn't matter what style you have, because I think this is the first pop singer I've talked to. On my brief recollection, but it doesn't matter what kind of music you're making, as long as you're making music. And then to be able to sit down and listen to this and be like, this album's insanely well produced, it's got a great flow to it from start to finish, like we talked about in this episode. It's pretty wild. This is a well thought out and well done album. And then to find out she's on TikTok doing all that stuff too, that's also pretty crazy. So hats off to her for keeping busy and doing all this cool stuff. I'm looking forward to the next single coming out. And if you guys are looking for any of her information, check it out down below. There's links to her pages on all the accounts, and you can also check out her album, which is really, really cool. Like I said, you got to check it out. If you want to check out some Audible Farm stuff, go to audiblefarm.com. That's where all the Audible Farm goodies are at. Also, if you guys are looking to support the podcast in any way, shape, or form, you can do it monetarily by hitting up the Patreon page. There's video versions of the podcast each week up on the Patreon page. It costs $1 a month. That's it's only $12 a year. And, for all the people that are patrons, I appreciate it. And otherwise, if you guys are listening to this for free, hey, guess what? It's always going to be free, so don't worry about it. There's always going to be free versions. But if you guys are looking for some Audible Farm swag, we got some t-shirts, and I'm all out of hoodies. But we've got keychains and stickers and things like that. The new t-shirts are sold out in almost every size, but I have more ordered, and they are on the way. I can't wait to see what kind of shirt you choose, and it's fun to see which musicians choose what color shirts and things like that. Just some of my buddies and seeing who's choosing them. If you guys are curious about the new shirts, check them out. You can go to shop.audiblefarm.com. There's a link down below to the Audible Farm shop as well. And you can find all of the Audible Farm t-shirts that are going to be in stock here soon. Otherwise, we have the classic tees still available. Those are available in bigger sizes as well. So check those out. They're also on the shop. And if you guys are looking to support us non-monetarily, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe, like, share, let your friends know. If you like this episode, share it with some of your buddies. Make a post about it. Comment on anything, too. That's another great way to let me know you're listening. Otherwise, I do have a lot of people track me down and tell me which episodes they specifically listened to and which ones they enjoyed. And it's really kind of fun to hear who chooses what episodes, because it's a wide variety. It's really a wide variety of who's choosing what and what they think of it. So it's pretty awesome. Most of the episodes I've gotten a lot of comments on. It doesn't matter who the guest is. So that just lets me know people are out there listening. And I thank you guys very much for getting back to me and letting me know. And if you enjoyed the episode, thank you very much, and let somebody know about it. And I think that'll do it for me this week. I'm going to check out of here. Be sure to check out Syd Bowii's links down below in the description section. And that's it for me. All right, we'll see you next week. Peace.